We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity for Young Men. These are interesting, and you're invited as a woman or as an older man to not only listen and participate, but obviously share these with others too. So, today we're going to be going through the analytic personality and as a young man. And so, you've hopefully watched the podcast for the amiable, and so here's the podcast for the analytic. The analytic, if you chose the cube of the four shapes, or if you chose out of order, you'd probably be in analytic. Now, we're not all one personality, so it could be analytic driver, analytic expressive, analytic amiable. The analytic, one of their greatest strengths is going to be they like to dot their I's, cross their T's, make sure things are done properly in order. One of their weaknesses, they like to dot their I's, cross their T's, make sure things are done properly in order. Our greatest strength is our greatest weakness, and our greatest weakness is our greatest strength misapplied, is taking a strength and carrying it too far. If you're an analytic driver personality, yes, but if you're in the top quadrant, cube or pyramid, which is where 75% of men typically fall. You're going to be another strength you have is your drive, your assertiveness to make things happen. Weakness would be drive, assertiveness to make things. And so you'd be a double portion of task, so you want things perfect and fast. And then your weakness would be as it relates to connecting with the amiable, the expressive, the people side. So you're focused very heavily on task. If you chose the cube in the wavy line or a cube and boring or not fun, secondary would be expressive personality. So one of your greatest strengths would be your energy, excitement, enthusiasm. Weaknesses would be energy, excitement, enthusiasm. You have a million ideas, strength, and weakness. You're going to have inner conflict. You'd have inner conflict if you're a driver analytic, because fast or perfect, but you do things fast and perfect. The driver analytic figures that out. But when you cross over, there's even more inner conflict. And so you go from the upper left to the lower right. And so you're going to have a million ideas and you want them all perfect. And so, career wise, anything you do, you'll be happy with, and anything you do, you won't be happy with. So there's a lot of tension, a lot of frustration inside because you have two parts of you pulling you. If you chose the analytic and the ball, the amiable, conflict with others, you'd go ahead, and one of your strengths would be your concern, compassion for people. One of your weaknesses would be concern, compassion for people. You'd have a double portion of less assertive, and so you're going to be less assertive with the task, and you're going to be less assertive with people. And so one of your greatest strengths would be your tenacity. Like once you set your mind to do something, you do it. One of your weaknesses might be at times a bit stubborn. And if that wasn't tough enough with the amiable, they get locked and stubborn. They have a lot of data to back it up. And so this gives an overview of young men as it relates to, maybe 5 topics that young men might be interested in. Is specifically, we could talk about the analytic is sex, fun, women, and marriage, and money and friendships. And so, in this short podcast, I don't know that we'll touch on all of them, but so I'll let Kenny and Luke kind of guide the conversation. But each of these 4 personalities will view sex, fun, money, and women, or women and marriage and money and friendship differently. So the analytic will look at differently than the other 3. And so other 3 personalities. So let's dive in. Kenny, what would you like to accomplish in today's podcast? It could be related to the analytic. It could be, as an analytic or relating to analytics, or it could be any one of the 5 or something else. What would you like to accomplish in today's podcast?
I would like to. So I've had some thoughts on. So this might be from young men in general, not just focused on the analytic, but on masturbation and also sex before marriage.
Okay. So there's a great white paper out there on the strength of a young man. And so we'll make sure that we put that beside it so somebody can go in And somebody can go in and click on that and go through and read that. That'll give you kind of a basis of background. The masturbation, in different belief systems, in different belief systems, there's going to be, different ways of viewing that. And so, let's go from a conservative perspective. So if you're a young man, you say, I see no problem with it. Okay, well, you see no problem. I think one of the things that's really important in today's culture is, what's interesting is I often find that people that think they're open-minded and think I'm not open-minded, is they may not be open-minded. Like, I'm more interested, it seems like, in hearing their perspective than they are hearing mine. So if you believe yourself to be somebody who's very open-minded, then you're fine with, pretty much anybody's perspective, as long as it's somebody who agrees with you. That's not being open-minded. And so listening to other people's perspectives, I think, is something that's probably maybe one of the most important thing to really consider, that perspective, and say, that's interesting. Now, what's also important, great book by Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, is that what might be right for one young man might be wrong for another. Like, one young man might be able to go ahead and have alcohol, drink, something in moderation, where another young man should never drink ever in their life. From my perspective, on the alcohol, I've never had a drink of alcohol because I have a very addictive personality. Getting back to the masturbation, Christians, from my understanding, and again, we're covering them because, they're often going to be the most, although I guess Muslims and others, Buddhists, I'm not sure what their views. It'd be interesting if you have a different view. So my background is Christianity. My dad was a pastor, missionary. So that's how I grew up. And so that's what I'm going to be most familiar with. If you are a Christian and you have a different perspective than I do, that's okay. And I'd love to have you on as a guest someday. And, let's talk about your perspective. And so, in going through it, a lot of Christians will have a perspective masturbation is wrong. I think their primary perspective is going to be, their primary reason is lust of a woman. You're not supposed to lust after a woman. So, in the 10 Commandments, it says, thou shalt not commit adultery, having sex outside of marriage, or it could be fornication. We won't even get into that, but that's an interesting study, the difference between the two. But anyway, and so they think about, so one perspective would be, you're lusting after a woman in masturbation, so you should never do it. Others would say not necessarily, because that's not necessarily required, but often that's a part of it. And so I've seen people with both sides of the perspective, and I encourage, people to work to be firmly convinced in their own mind, what they're doing, that is acceptable, and that's a good thing. If a young man has a conviction that they shouldn't masturbate, I encourage them, don't masturbate. If somebody doesn't have that conviction and feels that they can, I would be careful, and I definitely not go ahead and lust after a woman. And to
So
consider, yes,
speaking from experience, it's right on the line, the battle of just it's just too hard just to say no. Okay, you got to do something. What is that something that can make it a lot easier to say no?
to masturbation,
Yes.
work really hard. Like, if you're exhausted at night, keep busy. Work physically hard where you hit that pillow and you're dead. You're so tired. Like, you are so tired Like you can't, you're just boom, you're just gone. You're just asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go ahead and are lazy, if you're lazy, um, that's not going to go ahead. That's going to, if you have lazy and you have time on your hand, it can be like a drug. It can be like alcohol. So a number of young men like to drink alcohol because they feel connected with other people, but they're connecting through the alcohol. They're not connecting. It's not like real working at it. So any addiction. So addictions tend to be progressional. They continue to get worse. I'm not addicted. I'm not addicted. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's too late to be addicted. So working really hard throughout the day, time blocking, and say, I've got all these things going. You start a company, man, that's going to keep you busy. So you're so busy and you're so physically, emotionally, mentally exhausted at the end of the day in a really good way. That will help immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it relates to sex, my viewpoint. Okay, so again, everybody's entitled to their own view. Understand that you get to make a choice for your life. And so I went ahead and we were taught very much you don't have sex until marriage. I'm not sure when I embrace that as my own belief system rather than my parents' belief system or somebody else's belief system. And so I dated a little bit, but not a lot before I went ahead and found the woman that I'm been married to for 39 years. And we started dating, and my mom didn't talk a lot about sex. My parents did not talk a lot about sex, but my mom did say when I was dating, she said, Mark, sex is progressional. I'm like, okay, what's that? She's like when you rub you just brush up against a woman, like a girl's arm, like you have all these tingles. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Then she said, then you want to hold her hand. Okay. Then you want to go ahead and hug her. Then you want to go ahead and touch her. She said, everything leads to sex. I mean, it's all driving towards that. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then she said, so you have to be careful because you can move too quickly. Like it's a freight train out of control. So when we started dating and started kissing, and some circles I've been in say you don't kiss until marriage. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying there are some that actually believe that, and I respect that. We did not make that choice. We said kissing was fine, but I could see how much I enjoyed it with my girlfriend at the time. It was insane. It was like all consuming. It was just like every time we were together, we wanted to make out, like crazy. And so we actually put like we could only make out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We were at college, and so we were at college. They were guys and girls dorms, so the girls weren't allowed, and the guys weren't. But I had a car, and I had a brother who had an apartment that was totally available. And so I tried to put boundaries and say, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this. A woman will tend to go ahead, and when she falls in love, she will, it seems to me, okay, it seems to me, and when I say women and when I say men, I'm not saying all women, I'm not saying all men, just as a general rule. So that's not the case. I'm saying in general, these things seem to be patterns. So in general, when a woman falls in love with a man, she wants to give herself physically to that man in general. And so that is what happened in our dating. And then when we got engaged, it was infinitely harder. And so we had both decided that, yes, we're going to wait for sex until marriage and other sexual things too. So we were pretty careful. I mean, I'm like, man, we gotta, like, it's just the more I want, the more I got, the more I wanted, and the more rules I put in place, I figured out how to get around them. And I'm like, man, I am not. It was about 6 months before we got married. And I went into the Bible and actually found a reason, a good justification for having sex before marriage. I mean, I found biblically where I could do that. And I'm like, Mark, the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. So in my own mind, I thought, but I bet you I'm deceived. So even though biblically, I think I could go ahead and support the fact I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. And I cannot tell you 39 years of marriage. I cannot tell you how thankful I am that I made that choice. Waiting until marriage is one of the top 5 choices that I've made in my life. The benefit is massive. It's insane. I think that the woman and the guy will often feel guilt. And the woman will, when it says in the Bible about Adam and Eve, that Eve's desire, God's curse, part of the curse is her desire will be to her husband. Men want to think that's a desire for sex. It's not. It's a desire to control her husband. When you look at the original language, it's a desire to control her husband. And so I believe that when a man goes ahead and has sex before marriage or even sexual things, I'd keep away from all of it personally, and did. And so the woman controls the husband, and that's not good for her. I think that it emasculates the man. They say that the sex drive in a man between 18 and 23, I think it is the highest. It's the highest during those years, where a woman is after 30, in her early 30s, which is when she's in her prime childbearing years. And so there's a design for that. And so when a man honors a woman and she can feel how much he wants it, especially as she's in love. She wants it too, but he really wants it. And when he disciplines that, a woman respects him and will fall more deeply in love. It builds a trust that's insane. Sexual things cloud. It gives a false sense in dating and engagement of connection and intimacy. So you think you're closer than you are. And so I'm a big believer, wait until marriage. Big believer. I mean, and the benefits are in the connection, in the loyalty, in the trust, both ways, going both ways. And I knew that it was up to me. I knew that my wife was so much in love with me, she would have given herself to me. I knew that. And I'm like, Mark, you're the one, buddy. You have got to go ahead. And so in every area, never know how much to go into sex with individuals that are not married. My mom got us the book, The Act of Marriage. It's an older book, but it's a great book. I wouldn't recommend it. She didn't give it to us until we were married. My mom also said, when you're married, Mark, anything that is okay for you and your wife together. So this is just the two of you. She said, anything that the two of you are okay together with in sex, in marriage, the two of you, is okay. I'm like, really? Because there was a lot in my mind. Like, if you and your wife are okay with it, if she's okay with it and you're okay with it, between the two of you, it's okay. And so sexually, the 39 years of marriage, I have been blessed massively in that area, far more than, most men. And I believe that a big part of it is because of my choice to not have sex until marriage. I believe that somehow has a blessing. It also gives a man confidence. There's times I own my own company, international speaker and author. In my own business, there were multiple times in the first 10 years where I said, I cannot handle this. This is too hard. And immediately I went to Mark, stop your whining. You didn't have sex with your wife when you were dating and engaged. If you don't go ahead, if you didn't do that, you can do anything. So it gives a man confidence. And this is where teaching young women, I mean, there were definitely things. We were at college. It was a Christian college, but still at college. And we'd go out to the lake and she had these pink shorts. And I told her, I said, honey, you cannot wear those pink shorts and you cannot wear that top. So there were certain things like she was considerate of me, where I just knew, I'm just like, I'm gone. I see those things and I just don't have the strength. So just don't wear those things. And so the confidence it gives a young man, it's like, I believe it's very similar to going in the woods. We walk through the woods together. We see a caterpillar that's woven a cocoon. We see it breaking free. And because we're very loving people, we see the pain that the caterpillar, now a butterfly, is going through and breaking free. So we very carefully cut that cocoon open. And what will happen to that butterfly?
It'll die.
It'll die for one of two reasons. It will die because it either starves to, because the breaking free is it fills the membranes of the wings. So the wings can fly. If it doesn't have that struggle, if it doesn't have that pain. So this is nature. Like this is nature. This is how it happens. And so I believe the same thing is true in a young man. So it either goes ahead, it can't fly if it doesn't break free naturally. And so it either gets eaten by the prey or it starves to death, one or the other. And so I believe that the sex drive in a man, they say it's the second highest drive only to survival, living. But when you look at the risky things that are behaviors that are done with people before marriage, with multiple partners and time again, all that kind of stuff, actually, you can make a strong argument. It is the strongest driving force within a young man. It's stronger than even survival. So disciplining that strength. So in the last, I think it's 20 years, 10 years, maybe last 10, 20 years, men's testosterone overall has gone down 30%. This is not good for America, the world. It's not good. Men's testosterone, it's conquest. And so that's what gives men the ability to go out and do risky things, risky good things or risky bad things. And so you can start a business, you can invent something, you can create something, you can do something with that testosterone. And being able to direct that and focus that testosterone in the right direction. I believe that a lot of that drop in testosterone is because of gaming, alcohol, drugs, marijuana, energy drinks, all of those type of things. And I can't tell you how many young men in their 30s that I've known that are married, they would rather do gaming, like Xbox and all of that, than have sex with their wife, have intimacy with your wife. That is a foreign concept to me. So it's addictive, and they're finding out that gaming is more and more addictive. And so in sex in a marriage, it somehow empowers the husband to do things he would not naturally normally be able to do, I believe. And it builds a connection and appreciation for his wife that's absolutely insane. At a marriage conference that my wife and I went to, the woman, her husband did a lot of speaking, but she got up and she encouraged the women, give sexually to your husband. She said it doesn't really take that much time, but it does take energy, emotional energy. So anyways, that will probably be for another session after you get married. For the women, there's so many things that could be shared for women the power they have in that area is amazing. When they use that power well, it serves them, their marriage, and their kids in crazy, crazy ways. If they use it improperly, it's not going to go well for anybody. All right, we have just a couple more minutes. Anything else that you guys have? Okay, so, share this with other people, go through, learn something about yourself, learn something about other people based on personalities. And going through that. And then, the 5 things: sex, fun, women and marriage, money, and friendships. The analytic will have strengths and the analytic will have weaknesses. And so, women really, they hunt by a pack. Women will tend to come together better than men and work together in teams. Men tend to be more loners. So teaching men how to come together with the different personalities and work together is very, very powerful. Share this with at least 2 people. And if you have any questions, connect with the individual who passed this along to you. For sure, you can have questions on this. You can submit questions. You can also join the personality app. And so I would do that, the life-gps.org app. I would for sure do that. If you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.